No, but the thing is, though, I sort of agree with you. By the way, this is something I've actually found has been a big turn off to a lot of people in coaching, is that they come in thinking like, well, maybe I might not succeed if I don't do a good job. And then you find out sometimes you don't even get to implement your ideas always. And the worst part of all, and I have to say, this is a killer I've noticed for a lot of my friends who were in coaching, is at the end, you still get the blame as if you had all the power and as if you made all those decisions. And so that's the least satisfying part, because if you ever end up with a team that's not very good, you kind of feel like I had my hands tied and this isn't what I wanted to do anyway, but I'm being treated as though this was like I chose all this. Like I wanted all these players. I wanted them to play this way. I wanted to discipline a player that way and bench him that way. And so, yeah, it sounds like unfortunately, I have to say, in the modern day, it feels like the coach could be a scapegoat for everything else in the org at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what to org, but I think the overall concept is simply that coaching is an unforgiving role. And when I was a player, I think I disrespected the coaching role too, to a certain extent, despite me not. I mean, only once I actually advocated for a coach being kicked, and that was the good old Fnatic days. But it's more about that. You need to have you need to give him some kind of authority. And then it has to be kind of like determined by both the organization and the players themselves, and it has to basically like be negotiated all the time. And I think that's not properly happening within most esports orgs as I've seen it. And they either simply go for the top-down hierarchy and that's it, or they let it be player run. And I think both concepts are. They need more negotiation. There needs to be something in the middle that actually works for both parties, because the coach being nothing is as bad as being as a coach being everything. It just doesn't work, to my estimation.
Yeah, agreed.
Unless you're...
To me, they're just complementary components. The question is just how much are we going to balance it? And even that, I think, ties back into it. Depends what your coach is, doesn't it? Like, if you have a coach who really does just come from a system, yeah, you can plug him into yours and you can tell him what to do. But if you bring in someone on, like, the obvious example is, like, LS is the ultimate example. It's like, if you're bringing him in, why are you bringing him in just to join a coaching structure? Surely you're bringing him in because you want what he brings to the table. So you're going to actually have to, in some ways, you could even argue this is what Cloud9 didn't do. You're going to have to actually dismantle some of your existing structure to make space for that guy to be able to implement all the things he might have in mind, Yeah,
and that is something. I mean, especially with Cloud9 situation. I mean, I don't know if you guys you probably talked about it a lot, but that irritated me from the outset. Obviously, I still have no idea about the intrinsic things that happened or that occurred. But when you bring in someone like LS, who's quite frankly, maybe, I mean, to my estimation, still on the very extreme side in terms of the hypotheticals that he's working with.
Sure.
Irregardless of that, like, his ideas have seen some fruition, or like they have come to fruition in some situations. And if you don't allow this person to be who they are, well, then you're not getting everything that this person could grant you anyway, right? So and maybe a half-assed version is actually a no-assed version in some situations, with other coaches who are less.
When it comes to LS, it's either the whole ass or no ass. You know the
rules. Amazing. Look, I think that when it comes to LS, he also is somebody like us who is not going to fit well within an existing structure. And there was no way in hell that Cloud9 was going to compromise the structure that works for them. I'm sure that they do have flexibility, but like, if you look at, and every time I say this, people just accuse me of being some Cloud9 apologist. I am not saying a judgment here, guys. I'm simply explaining how Cloud9 works to you, and you can choose to take this information and go to whatever conclusion you want to.
By the way, Monty, I never normally check on Twitch because I don't use Twitch at all. Like, I never even stream if people don't know, right? But because I do have the name that people might guess might be my name on Twitch, I've just looked, and when you have those notifications at the top, I was like, why would I have a notification? And I clicked it, and it says that yesterday someone has just troll gifted me a sub to Nemesis's stream. It's okay. Well played, whoever that was. Well played. I don't know why you've done it or why it was yesterday, because I wasn't even streaming. I'm not even on Twitch, but well played. You got me on that one. Okay. I saw that and did go, I've subscribed. Oh, it's a gifted one, right? Okay.
Congrats on your Nemesis subscription.
Yeah, they got me on that one.
Maybe it was a Genji celebration subscription for you.
Could have been something like that. Yes.
After their win. Anyway, no, but like I think Cloud9, what they do is they have a system that includes like this performance psychologist that they really trust. It's the same shit they always do. It's like, people are going to work out in the morning. Like, they have a trainer come to the Cloud9 facility
within the org, right?
Yeah, and you work out with the team, and you have a set structure and the way you do things. And like, I think that Cloud9 actually did give LS insane freedom. Like, everybody's like, well, why would you hire LS? Well, first off, guys, we've had this conversation. people are different in real life than they are on the internet. I'm not sure Jack and Ellis had ever actually met prior to.
Who knows,
that's a
right?
good
Yeah.
question, actually. Yeah, it's wild.
I'm not sure if they had because of the pandemic.
2016 or when he was on Gravity, maybe at the time.
Yeah, it would have been a long time if it was because of the pandemic, right? So there was no in-person meeting that happened before this. And Cloud9 is one of the teams that lives and practices in the same place, which amplifies any kind of inconsistencies, right? It has benefits as well. You have, a lot of camaraderie when you're around each other all the time. But if things start to go wrong, they can snowball really, really fast in that environment because you're living and working in the exact same place. They kind of run the OG Team House system. So these are the things, I still don't have a full picture of what happened. I do have some idea at this point. And what I will say about it is it seemed like Cloud9 really likes to have a structure. Jack is basically the owner of Cloud9, but he's also the GM of the team, and he needs to be included in things. And I think that, Jack's scheduling dictates a lot of what the team can do in terms of structure. And if it's going to go outside of that, then it causes problems. I know that's vague.
Here's the problem. I'll give you an analogy, boys and girls. You know the classic analogy where there's a saying in English, right, which is like, say you're in a bar in England and you see a bunch of hot girls come into the bar and they're all getting drinks.
That doesn't happen in England, by the way.
Whatever. You come from Germany, mate. I wouldn't worry about it. So when they come in, right, obviously you look down and then the idea is if you see one that's hot, the way you say it is you say, I wouldn't kick their ass out of bed in the morning. Because the idea is like, wow, this looks so attractive. But here's the flaw that you make. Because in that moment, your mind's more in like the hunter-gatherer mode of like you're looking for a vector. In this case, obviously it's a vector for reproduction. You look in, right? You see them. In that moment, you're just seeing like the best of them. They're attractive. You see the qualities that look good. You imagine what they might be like as a person. The problem is the reality of that person could be completely different than your expectations. So all I would say is this, right, is I see this happen a lot with young men where they think that like the most attractive or the most beautiful looking woman, somehow that like elevates that person to like a 10 out of 10. It's like, you haven't even met them yet. They're not anything out of 10. You don't know them as much. All you know is their raw looks or how attractive they are. What you might find is there's like a famous thing people used to have, which is like, the hottest girl in the world. Yeah, there's some guy who's actually fucking sick of her shit. Like, some people might be high maintenance, believe it or not. Crazy idea. Imagine that. Imagine a beautiful woman in a bar might be high maintenance. She might actually have demands of you. She might have lots of suitors and as a result be able to make big demands. It's the same with someone like LS. You might love the idea of having that guy. Yeah. And by the way, all the upside of like he's going to have wacky ideas and he's going to bring a different vision and all. But you know what? There might be downsides that you can't know until you've ever worked with the person. Like, for example, in the analogy with the hot girl, maybe it's great in a bar where you just out with her, but maybe she's really insecure about something. Maybe you have to be around her all the time or reassure her. Like, you can't know what level of maintenance someone has and what particular idiosyncrasies they have as a person. So to me, the main problem with that whole topic was there's no like transition phase. You can't take LS and go, right, we're going to start you at like a limited capacity. Yeah, you have to basically either just go all in with him and take everything that's part of the LS experience, or you had to basically do like this and say, you're out completely. Because if people don't know, the other reason I thought this move was silly is he only did it because it was the dream job. It was every single little check mark checked for right now. Realistically, like the fact that when he was left, he was like, well, I won't coach another team. It's like, I don't really know if this ever should have been attempted then. It's a bit like when T1 was going to sign him. I was mad with how T1 handled it, but I also thought it was silly that they were just going to elevate him from, I once coached a fucking challenger team and Gravity 7 years ago to like, you are now Faker's coach. Go and win worlds. I always thought that was crazy in itself. Like, what? Where's the fucking step up from this? Like, so 1 minute I'm like, pick Annie, always go, Faker, yeah, we're going to be doing this now. Like, what are you talking about? What's the connection there? So to me, luckily, I've sort of reached closure with that whole topic now, because essentially what I've decided is it never long-term could have worked. So we just ripped the Band-Aid off at the beginning. So it sucks we didn't get a whole split, but I'm not that bothered anymore by it. I was really mad at the beginning, but I sort of got past it.
I'll also say, like, Ellis is a very different person on his stream than he is in real life, guys. And like, of course that's expected. I'm not saying that I quite like LS personally. But he is really different than the persona that you see, is what I'll say. So, I think it's hard to judge him based off of that persona that he puts on for the stream. versus kind of who he is and who many of us are in our day-to-day lives when we're not on camera, right? Many of us are very different people. So who knows? Like, it could have been an unexpected personality conflict that may have occurred. And I think that in general, both Jack and Ellis are very well-meaning people, but sometimes you can have conflicts if you haven't met or worked together before.
It's a bit like when Amazing had that perception of us from Summoning Insight. And he thought we were one way. He thought we were just cynical assholes who hate TSM and only make fun of them all the time just for no reason. And he was wrong.
Do you think that changed?
There was a reason. We just really didn't like TSM. That was it. The rest of it was all true. It was actually all true. No, there are certain different. Especially, here's the other thing people don't know is, like, it's also... one thing you can never know till you've met people is you don't know what the dynamic's like when you have a conversation with them. Like, streaming's like a one-sided dialogue, isn't it? They're just doing it. They have all the say over it. You're just sat there passively consuming it. You don't know what it's like to work with someone and get in a convo with them. I even find it with interviews, by the way. Sometimes in an interview, when you start talking to a player, you're like, wow, it's really different than I expected, even though I've seen a million interviews of this guy, because I just wasn't the one in the dynamic at the time. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.